Before we start, I just want to say thank you to channel member Baddie, okay? If you want to be a channel member and see these videos early, plus a few other perks, then check out the membership on this little channel tab thing in the link in the description. Woo! So recently, I reread the Walking Dead novel series. Now, I barely remembered anything about these books, but in the past sort of year, I have reread every single one of them. Well, except Typhoon, I still need to read Typhoon. However, I've read every single one of what is called the Woodbury novel series. These, of course, consist of the rise of the Governor. After this, there was actually a short story released in the Walking Dead official magazine. This is called Just Another Day at the Office, and it's a short story that takes place right after the rise of the Governor. Followed by Road to Woodbury, where Lily is introduced as a main character. Then, of course, we have Fall of the Governor Part 1 and Fall of the Governor Part 2. Of course, Part 2 ends with the Governor's death. Well, doesn't end with his death, but he dies like pretty late on into the book. And, of course, Lily, from here on out, is our main character. Then we have Descent, Invasion, Search and Destroy, and then Return to Woodbury. Now, I am planning a full breakdown of every single one of the novels. I just want to read Typhoon before I do that. But in my pursuit of reading all the novels, I came across this short story that Robert Kirkman wrote before he wrote any of the novels. This, in fact, was his first attempt at writing outside of, like, the comic book medium, okay? So this is, like, his first novel in a way, although it is only a short. It's the first story in this anthology book called The Living Dead 2. It also includes a bunch of short stories from other authors in the zombie genre, including Max Brooks, who of course wrote World War Z. Now, it was a bit weird at first because it's written in the first person, whereas the other novels are all written in the third person, so it took me out a little bit when I first started reading it, but by the time I'd finished it, I was like, wow, I really fucking enjoyed that. I thought that was pretty good. So today I want to talk about the short story that is called Alone Together. Now, Alone Together follows the protagonist of Timothy Stinnot. Now, Timothy is not the best survivor. He's actually pretty incompetent. He's only ever killed one walker pretty much at the start of the story, and mostly just avoids them. So Timothy actually started surviving the onset of the outbreak alongside his wife Diane, and we get this nice little flashback at the start of the book where Timothy relays the moment he proposed to his wife, and basically she kind of comes to him after a few dates in this trench coat with nothing on underneath, like this very romantic, sexy, gesture, and he was like, this is the woman I want to marry. She's amazing. But sadly, Diane was devoured by walkers in front of Timothy, and Timothy couldn't do anything to save her. After this, Timothy hooked up with a group of 5 survivors. A guy called David, 2 twins with the surname Carson, so Carson 1, Carson 2, a guy called James, and his girlfriend Alicia. Now, after a few months or weeks or whatever it is, David, he is devoured by zombies, as well as the 2 Carson twins. They're both devoured by zombies, and it's just now Timothy, James, and Alicia left in their little group. And of course, Timothy is feeling pretty sad about himself because he's having to watch this couple, bond together, and he's like the ultimate third wheel. Now, Timothy has feelings for Alicia, kind of. He feels some weird attraction to her, even though he admits she's not really his type at all, and she's much younger than him. Now, Timothy puts this down to Smurfette syndrome. Now, if you don't know what Smurfette syndrome is, it's the idea, obviously it's built from the Smurfs TV show, but the idea is that if you have one female in a group of males, the males inherently are eventually all going to be attracted to her out of this innate desire, this biological desire to protect her, etc., etc. That's what the theory is. And Timothy thinks that's the reason why he's starting to feel attracted to Alicia. Now, sadly, James dies whilst on a mission to look for medicine for a sick Alicia. And Timothy has to come back from the supply run and break the news to poor Alicia. Both Tim and Alicia then sort of survive together, bonding with each other, because they've both lost loved ones. And they get closer and they're there for each other. And they're still not great at killing walkers, but hey ho, they have their other methods. They run. They grab the supplies, they get out of there. We also get this really cool nod to the comics where Timothy references seeing a group of people in a large truck head to a gas station and a scary looking woman with a katana was killing walkers. Now, this is actually a reference to issue 57 of the Walking Dead comics, when Rick and his group were heading to Washington, D.C. They actually do stop off at a gas station, and of course, Alicia and Timothy, although we don't see them on panel, they of course witnessed this, and they just stayed hidden, because they feared that Rick and his group were a bunch of, like, marauders, right? They were a bunch of thieves and terrible bad people, and to be honest, looking at Rick's group, they do look pretty scary, so I understand why Timothy and Alicia avoided them. I guess the short story begins in the present, at least, after Alicia and Timothy have bundled themselves into an apartment block, and as the sun is beginning to come up and Alicia is sleeping, Timothy notices that there is a grocery store across the road, and he falls asleep and Alicia notices it too, and he kind of wanted to surprise her with it. Anyway, both of them go in there, and both Timothy and Alicia have very, very close calls with walkers. However, Timothy saves Alicia, Alicia saves him, etc, etc. They're both alive. And outside the store, they check each other for bites, taking off clothes, and emotions are going high, and they kiss. And they make love outside the grocery store in the middle of the street. Timothy is a little bit uncertain at first because he does feel like he's betraying Diane by moving on with Alicia. But she confirms with him that she also loves him too. So he's like, yeah, I love her, she loves me, and he's quite ecstatic about it. However, there's one thing he needs to tell her. They've kind of indulged in each other's secrets, but there's one big secret that Timothy still needs to tell her. And that's exactly how James died. Then we as the reader learn that the day that James and Tim went on that supply run for the medical supplies, that whole time there was a part of Timothy that wanted to murder James and then kind of claim Alicia as his own. This weird sort of hyper-masculinity thing perhaps, but also it was partly because he was just sick of them being happy together. But Timothy is a bit of a coward of a character, okay? So he never went through with it. However, when James was attacked by walkers, Timothy saw them coming, but did not warn James. Okay, he let them kill him. And when James needed help, he just watched. So Tim reveals all this information to Alicia because it's on his guilty conscience, he can't live with it, and he feels like he has to tell her because he loves her. Alicia doesn't take it great, as you might think. She screams at him, she punches him, she's in tears. However, she ends up falling asleep in his arms, and as they fall asleep together, Tim believes that she might actually forgive him. She does forgive him. He kind of deludes himself into thinking, that's it, she forgives me, we can move on past this point. However, when Tim awakes, he finds that Alicia has gone. But not only has she abandoned him, she's taken all the supplies, all their food, all their weapons, leaving Timothy up shit creek without a paddle. The most gut-wrenching sort of final lines of this book is where Timothy admits to himself that he is not going to survive more than 5 days without anything, without any supplies, that she has essentially killed him, and that without her, he doesn't really want to live anyway. So that is Alone Together. Now, you might argue, it's only a short story, it's not that amazing. Magnus, calm down, okay? I read it, I saw that ending coming from a mile away, etc, etc. Okay, yeah, you smart ass, maybe you did. But there's something about this short story to me that just encapsulates what The Walking Dead is, and why I love The Walking Dead. These strange kind of moral questions and weird relationship dynamics and nuanced sort of personalities. That's what I love about this entire franchise, and I think this short story, to me, just encapsulates all of that. By the end of the novel, Timothy is a disgusting wretch of a human being, okay? And he deserves his comeuppance, okay? He deserves to die for what he did. But there's part of him that I sympathize heavily with, okay? This poor fucking dude lost his wife and he's just not made for this world. I really like this dynamic between Timothy and Alicia because they essentially only get together because of their shared grief. And like Timothy said, he probably wouldn't choose this type of woman. This is not his type at all. And this is very similar to the Rick, Shane, Laurie dynamic, okay? Because Laurie and Shane only get together because they bond over the loss of Rick. Of course, Rick was like Shane's brother, and Rick was Laurie's husband. And after the loss of Rick, both Laurie and Shane sort of found a commonality between each other. That's how they bonded. That's how they got together. So, I guess that's all I have to really say about it. This was a short-ish video, I suppose, but I really love this little short story. I'm sorry I had to spoil it for you, but I just couldn't help myself, okay? But if you have read it before, you've watched this video, let me know what you think about it, because I'd be interested to see if you didn't like it. I'm always happy to hear other opinions, okay? But I really liked it, and maybe that's just because it was short and sweet, who knows? But thanks for watching. If you are interested in that novel video that I talked about, it will be a very long video where I painstakingly go through every single one of the novels in a big video essay. If you're interested in that, let me know down in the comments, okay? I want to see some enthusiasm. And also, if you are interested, if you want to help support me, okay? I'm just a poor guy, okay? Be a channel member. But if you don't want to be a channel member, you can send me some super thanks. That's cool too. Either or, I'm happy with. Oh, channel members get a vote on these video topics as well, by the way. No pressure, just comment and like if you can't send me money, alright? That is another way to show appreciation. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.